The gravel crunched under my boots as I stumbled onto the shoulder of Route 47, the tail lights of Brandon's pickup fading into the November dusk. My breath caught in my throat, sharp and cold, as the wind whipped through the empty fields, carrying the faint howl of a distant coyote. I clutched my scarf tighter, my fingers numb, not just from the chill but from the sting of betrayal. My son, my only son, had left me here stranded, his wife's venomous words still ringing in my ears. "She's holding you back, Brandon. Cut her loose." I stood there, the weight of 32 years of love and sacrifice crumbling like the cracked asphalt beneath me. The sky bled purple, the last light slipping away, mirroring the ache in my chest. I'd given him everything, every late-night story, every scraped-together dollar for his college, every tear when he chose her over me. And now this. A mother abandoned on a desolate highway, her pleas drowned by the roar of his engine. But as the cold seeped into my bones, something else stirred, a spark of rage, long buried under patience and hope. I wasn't just a victim. I knew things. Secrets Lauren thought she'd buried. Lies Brandon was too weak to face. My hand tightened around the phone in my pocket. They thought they could discard me like roadside trash, but they'd forgotten who I was. I'd raised him. I'd built our home. And I'd tear it all down before I let them win. The cold of Route 47 lingered in my bones as I sat in the cracked vinyl booth of a roadside diner. The neon sign outside buzzing like a trapped fly. A trucker had picked me up an hour after Brandon's taillights vanished, his pitying glance worse than the wind's bite. Now, nursing a coffee that tasted like regret, I stared at the chipped mug, my reflection warped in its curve. My graying hair was a mess, my eyes hollow, but there was something else there too. A fire I hadn't felt in years. I was Catherine Wilson, 62, a retired librarian who'd spent her life stitching together other people's stories. Now it was time to rewrite my own. The diner smelled of grease and stale pie, the kind of place where dreams came to die. A waitress, her name tag reading Doris, shuffled by, her sneakers squeaking on the linoleum. Outside, the Illinois fields stretched endlessly, their golden stalks brittle under the November frost. It was 6:30 p.m., and the world felt as empty as the highway I'd been left on. But my mind wasn't empty. It churned with memories, each one a thread in the tapestry of betrayal that had led me here. I'd raised Brandon alone after his father left us when he was 6. A deadbeat who couldn't handle the weight of fatherhood. He'd vanished into the Chicago sprawl, leaving me with a toddler and a mortgage. I didn't break. I worked double shifts at the library, read Brandon bedtime stories until my voice cracked, and saved every penny for his future. Our home in Elmwood, a cozy but weathered two-story on Maple Street, became our sanctuary. Its sagging porch and peeling paint held our laughter, our tears, our late-night talks over cocoa. I thought it was enough. Then came Lauren. She swept into Brandon's life 5 years ago, all sharp smiles and sharper ambitions. A real estate agent with a knack for closing deals and breaking bonds, she saw me as an obstacle. I saw it in her eyes the first time we met, her handshake too firm, her laugh too loud. She wanted Brandon to herself, to mold him into someone who'd fit her glossy life. And Brandon, my soft-hearted boy who once cried over a bird with a broken wing, let her. He stopped calling, stopped visiting. When he did show up, it was with Lauren's voice in his ear, her demands pulling his strings. The diner's jukebox kicked on, some mournful country tune about lost love. I sipped my coffee, bitter as the truth. Today hadn't been an accident. They'd planned it. The drive out to Route 47 was supposed to be a family errand. Brandon had said he needed my help picking up furniture from a Craigslist seller. I should have known something was off when Lauren insisted on coming. Her perfume filled the truck, cloying and smug, as she sat between us, her hand possessive on Brandon's thigh. The seller never showed. Instead, Lauren started in on me, her voice like a blade. "You're smothering him, Kathy. He's not your little boy anymore." I bit my tongue like always for Brandon's sake. But when I argued back, her eyes gleamed. She'd been waiting for that. "Pull over," she told Brandon, her tone final. He hesitated, his knuckles white on the wheel, but he did it. "Get out," she said to me, and when I looked at Brandon, his face was blank, his eyes on the road ahead. I begged him to look at me, to remember who I was, but he just muttered, "Mom, please." The door slammed shut and they were gone. I set the mug down, my hands trembling. The diner's clock ticked toward 7 p.m. Each second a reminder of what I'd lost. But loss wasn't new to me. I'd lost my husband, my youth, my dreams of a bigger life. I'd poured it all into Brandon, and now he'd spit in my face. The pain was a living thing clawing at my chest, but beneath it was something harder. Resolve. They thought they could erase me, but they didn't know the secrets I carried. Lauren wasn't as clever as she thought. 2 years ago, I'd found a letter tucked in Brandon's old jacket when he left it at my house. It was from a collection agency, addressed to Lauren, detailing debts she'd racked up before they met. Tens of thousands, tied to a failed boutique and some shady loans. Brandon didn't know. She'd begged the agency to keep it quiet, and I'd kept her secret, hoping she'd change. Foolish, maybe, but I wanted to believe in the woman my son loved. Now that letter was my weapon. And then there was Vanessa Crow, Lauren's so-called best friend. I knew her type. Elmwood's resident gossip, always stirring the pot while pretending to care. She'd been at our house for barbecues, her laughter too loud, her eyes too sharp. Last summer I overheard her on the phone in my backyard, whispering about Lauren's old connections in Chicago, people she owed money to. Vanessa thought she was safe, but she'd underestimated me. I'd been a librarian after all. I knew how to find information, how to piece together stories from fragments. The diner's door jangled, and a gust of cold air swept in. A man in a flannel jacket sat at the counter, muttering about the Bears game. I barely noticed. My mind was on Elmwood, on the house I'd fought to keep. It was in my name, a fact Lauren resented. She'd pushed Brandon to convince me to sell it, to downsize so they could fund their dream home. I'd refused. That house was my legacy, my proof that I'd built something despite the world's best efforts to break me. Now it would be my battleground. I pulled out my phone, the screen cracked from when I dropped it on the highway. My fingers hovered over Brandon's number, but I didn't call. Not yet. Instead, I opened my notes app, where I jotted down names, dates, fragments of Lauren's past. The debts, the connections, the lies. I wasn't just a mother scorned. I was a woman with nothing left to lose. And that made me dangerous. The emotional weight of the betrayal settled over me like a fog. I'd spent years protecting Brandon, shielding him from his father's abandonment, from the world's cruelties. I'd taught him to be kind, to be strong, but he'd chosen weakness. He'd chosen her. The moral question gnawed at me: was I wrong to fight back? To destroy the family I'd spent my life building? Part of me wanted to forgive, to believe he'd come back. But the other part, the part that had survived betrayal before, knew better. Justice wasn't soft. It was sharp, like the wind on Route 47. I thought of my students, the kids I'd tutored since retiring. They'd come to my house, shy and struggling, and I'd help them find their voices. One of them, a girl named Mia, had said I was like a detective, piecing together clues to make sense of books. I'd laughed then, but now I felt it. I was a detective and Lauren was my case. Her debts, her past, her grip on my son. They were clues, and I'd follow them until I exposed her. The diner's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows. I glanced at the other patrons, a trucker scrolling his phone, a couple whispering in a corner. They had their own stories, their own betrayals. But mine was unfolding now, and I couldn't stop. I thought of our house, its creaky stairs and faded wallpaper. It held every memory of Brandon's childhood. Every moment I'd thought we were unbreakable. Lauren wanted it gone, wanted me gone. She didn't understand what she'd started. I paid for my coffee, leaving a crumpled 5 on the table. Doris nodded, her eyes tired but kind. Outside, the night was thick, the stars hidden by clouds. I zipped my coat, my breath visible in the air. A cab was on its way, called by the trucker who'd brought me here. It would take me back to Elmwood, back to the house that was mine. I'd walk through its rooms, touch the walls, and remember who I was. Not just a mother, but a fighter. The cab's headlights appeared in the distance, cutting through the dark. I stepped into the cold, my heart pounding. The conflict was clear. Lauren wanted control, Brandon wanted peace, and I wanted justice. They'd betrayed me, but I wasn't done. I'd unravel their lies, starting with Lauren's past. Vanessa would talk, she always did. And Brandon? He'd have to face the truth about the woman he'd chosen over me. As the cab pulled up, I made a silent vow. They'd left me on that highway, but I'd leave them with nothing. The house, the family, the life they thought they could steal. It was mine. And I'd burn it all down before I let them win. The cab dropped me off at the edge of Elmwood just past 8 p.m. The streetlights casting long shadows across Maple Street. My house loomed ahead, its sagging porch and chipped paint glowing faintly under the moon. The air was sharp with the scent of fallen leaves, and the neighborhood was quiet, save for the distant hum of a neighbor's TV. I unlocked the door, the familiar creak of the hinges grounding me. Inside, the house smelled of old wood and lavender, a reminder of the life I'd built. But tonight, it felt like a fortress I had to defend. I flicked on the kitchen light, the bulb buzzing faintly. My hands still shook from the cold. Or maybe from the rage that hadn't left me since Route 47. I set my cracked phone on the counter and pulled out a notebook, its pages filled with scribbled notes from my tutoring sessions. Tonight, it would serve a different purpose. I was done waiting for Brandon to come to his senses. Done hoping Lauren would show remorse. They'd drawn a line, and I was crossing it. I started with what I knew. The letter about Lauren's debts, tucked away in my bedroom safe. The overheard conversation between Vanessa and someone on the phone, hinting at Lauren's old connections. These were my leads, and I'd follow them like a bloodhound. I'd been a librarian for 30 years. Finding answers was my trade. I knew how to dig, how to connect dots. Lauren thought she could outsmart me, but she'd underestimated the woman who'd raised her husband. My first move was Vanessa. She was the weak link, always flapping her gums at the worst moments. I'd seen her at the grocery store last week, her cart full of wine and gossip magazines, her laugh too loud as she chatted with the cashier. She'd spill if I pressed her right. I jotted down her name and a plan. Corner her at the coffee shop she frequented, play the concerned mother-in-law, and let her ego do the rest. But Vanessa could wait until morning. Tonight, I needed to secure my leverage. I climbed the stairs, my knees aching, and opened the safe in my bedroom closet. The letter was there, its edges worn from when I'd first read it 2 years ago. Addressed to Lauren, it detailed $47,000 in unpaid debts, $30,000 from a failed boutique she'd opened in Chicago, $17,000 from personal loans with a shady lender called Pinnacle Financial. The letter warned of legal action if she didn't pay. I'd kept it, not out of malice, but because I didn't trust her. Now it was my ace. I sat on the bed, the letter in my lap, and let the memories flood back. Brandon had been so proud when he met Lauren, his eyes bright as he described her ambition, her charm. I'd wanted to believe in her for his sake. But the cracks showed early. She'd snap at him over small things, his choice of tie, his habit of leaving dishes in the sink. She'd roll her eyes when I spoke, dismissing my stories about Brandon's childhood. I'd swallowed it, thinking love would smooth her edges. Instead, she'd sharpen them. The clock ticked past 9 p.m. I tucked the letter back in the safe and pulled out my laptop, an old Dell that groaned as it powered on. If Lauren's debts were still active, there'd be a trail. I started with Pinnacle Financial, typing the name into Google. The results were sparse. A few complaints on shady loan forums, a defunct website. But one post on a Chicago debt relief board caught my eye. Pinnacle's tied to some rough people. If you owe them, they don't just call. They show up. My pulse quickened. Lauren wasn't just hiding money problems. She was tangled with dangerous types. I dug deeper, searching Lauren's name alongside Chicago boutique. A few archived Yelp reviews popped up for Lauren's Luxe, her failed shop. Customers complained about overpriced clothes and rude service. One review mentioned a creepy guy who'd hung around the store, like he was collecting something. I wrote it down. It wasn't much, but it was a thread to pull. My phone buzzed, startling me. A text from Mia, my tutoring student. "Mrs. Wilson, you okay? You didn't answer my email about tomorrow's lesson." I sighed, guilt tugging at me. Mia was a good kid, 16, struggling with English but sharp as a tack. I typed back, "I'm fine, sweetie. Let's do 3 p.m. tomorrow." I couldn't let this consume me entirely. But as I hit send, I realized Mia might be useful. She was tech-savvy, always glued to her phone. If I needed help tracking Lauren's digital footprint, she'd know where to look. Sleep was out of the question. I paced the living room, the hardwood creaking under my slippers. The betrayal gnawed at me, each memory a fresh cut. Brandon's blank stare as he drove away. Lauren's smug smile. I'd given him everything. Every scraped-together dollar. Every sleepless night when he was sick. And he'd chosen her. The anger was a fire now, steady and hot. I wouldn't just expose Lauren. I'd make them both feel the weight of what they'd done. The next morning, I was at Brood Awakening, Elmwood's only coffee shop, by 8 a.m. The place smelled of roasted beans and cinnamon, its walls lined with local art. Vanessa was there, as expected, perched at a corner table with her latte and her phone. Her blonde hair was pulled into a messy bun, her nails tapping the screen. I ordered a black coffee and approached, my heart pounding but my face calm. "Vanessa, mind if I join you?" I asked, sliding into the chair across from her. She looked up, startled, then flashed a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Kathy, God, it's been forever. How's everything?" I leaned in, keeping my voice soft. "Not great, honestly. I'm worried about Brandon. Lauren's got him all twisted up. You're her friend. Any idea what's going on?" Vanessa's smile faltered. She sipped her latte, buying time. "Oh, you know Lauren. She's just protective. Wants what's best for them." "Protective?" I raised an eyebrow. "She's pushing me out, Vanessa. And I think it's because she's hiding something. You've known her longer than I have. Anything I should know? Her fingers tightened around her cup. Hiding?
No, no.
Lauren's an open book. But her eyes darted away, and I knew I had her. I pressed harder, dropping my voice to a conspiratorial whisper. I heard she had some trouble in Chicago. Debts, maybe? Old friends she doesn't talk about. Vanessa's face paled. Who told you that? She snapped, then caught herself. I mean, that's just gossip. People love to talk. People like you, I said, my tone sharp but my smile sweet. Come on, Vanessa. If something's wrong, I need to know. For Brandon's sake. She hesitated, her nails tapping faster. Then, like I'd hoped, her need to be the center of attention won out. Okay, fine. But this stays between us. Lauren, she did have some issues before she met Brandon. A shop that tanked, some loans she couldn't pay. And yeah, there were people she owed. Not nice people. But she's past that now. She's got Brandon, the real estate gig. And me out of the picture, I cut in. Why is she so desperate to cut me off? Vanessa shrugged. But her eyes betrayed her. She thinks you're controlling. Says you hold the house over Brandon's head. She wants a fresh start. I nodded, letting her think I was satisfied. But my mind was racing. Vanessa had confirmed the debts and the not nice people. I needed names, specifics. I changed tactics, softening my voice. You're a good friend, Vanessa. I bet it's hard, always cleaning up Lauren's messes. Her laugh was brittle. You have no idea. She's my best friend, but God, she's a lot. Last month she freaked out because some guy called her, someone from Chicago. She wouldn't tell me details, just said it was handled. Bingo. I filed that away, thanked her, and left before she could backtrack. The coffee shop's bell jingled as I stepped into the crisp morning air. Vanessa had given me more than she realized. Lauren was still tied to her past, and it was catching up. Back home, I called Mia for our tutoring session but added a twist. Bring your laptop, I said. I've got a side project you might like. When she arrived, her backpack slung over one shoulder. I handed her a lemonade and got to the point. You're good with computers, right? I need help finding someone online. Nothing shady, just family stuff. Mia's eyes lit up. Like detective work? I'm in. I gave her Lauren's name and the basics. Chicago, a boutique, Pinnacle Financial. I didn't mention the debts or the highway. She didn't need to know. While Mia tapped away, I cooked dinner, the routine calming my nerves. The kitchen smelled of garlic and tomatoes, but my mind was on Lauren. If she was still dodging creditors, they might be leverage. Or danger. I needed to be careful. Mia called me over an hour later. Found something weird, she said, turning her laptop. It was a cached forum post from 3 years ago, buried in a Chicago subreddit. Someone claiming to be an ex-employee of Lauren's boutique wrote. She was always paranoid, checking the locks, jumping at shadows. Said her investors were watching her. One guy, Vince, showed up once. Big dude, tattoos. She paid him cash and told me to forget it. Vince. I wrote the name down, my heart racing. This was the creepy guy from the Yelp review. Mia kept digging, pulling up a LinkedIn profile for a Vincent Russo, a consultant, with a vague job history, and a photo of a man with a shaved head and a scar on his cheek. It wasn't proof, but it was close. I thanked Mia, sent her home with extra cookies, and sat alone with my notes. The pieces were coming together. Lauren's debts, her fear, this Vince guy. But obstacles loomed. Brandon wouldn't believe me without hard evidence. He was too deep in Lauren's spell. And if Vince was as bad as he sounded, confronting him could backfire. I needed to be smart, not reckless. That night, I drove to Brandon's house, a sleek suburban split level they'd bought last year. The lights were on and Lauren's SUV was in the driveway. I parked across the street, my hands gripping the wheel. Part of me wanted to storm in, throw the letter in their faces and demand answers. But that was a fantasy. I needed to build my case, to hit them where it hurt. As I watched, the front door opened and Lauren stepped out, her phone pressed to her ear. Her voice carried, sharp and panicked. I told you I'm handling it. Just give me time. She paced the porch, oblivious to me. No, he doesn't know. And he won't. My blood ran cold. She was talking about Brandon. About secrets. I stayed until she went inside, then drove home, my resolve hardening. Lauren was unraveling, and I'd be there to pull the final thread. The next day I called an old friend, Tom, a retired cop who'd helped me track down a missing library book once. Over coffee at my kitchen table, I laid out the basics. No names, just a hypothetical about someone dodging creditors with ties to rough people. Tom's eyes narrowed. Sounds like loan sharks. If this person's still paying, they're in deep. You got a name? I hesitated, then gave him Vince's. Tom promised to ask around, no questions asked. Be careful, Kathy, he said. These types don't play nice. I nodded, but careful wasn't an option anymore. The tension was unbearable. Every moment a step closer to confrontation. I kept seeing Brandon's face, his silence on that highway. I kept hearing Lauren's voice, her lies. The house around me felt alive with memories. Brandon's first steps, his high school graduation, the night he told me he was proposing. I'd lost him, but I wouldn't lose this fight. By week's end, Tom called back. Vincent Russo's bad news, he said.
Ex-con, muscle for hire.
Works for a guy named Marco D'Angelo. Runs a loan outfit in Chicago. Your hypothetical person might owe Marco. If they do, they're scared for a reason. I thanked him, my stomach churning.
Marco D'Angelo.
Another name, another lead. I was in over my head, but I couldn't stop. Lauren had pushed me to this, and Brandon had let her. They'd pay for that, one way or another. The kitchen clock ticked past midnight. Its relentless rhythm a counterpoint to the storm in my mind. The house was silent, but my thoughts screamed. I sat at the table, my notebook open, pages cluttered with names. Vincent Russo, Marco D'Angelo, Pinnacle Financial. And scraps of evidence that felt like pieces of a bomb I was building. The letter about Lauren's debts lay beside me. Its words seared into my memory. $47,000. A failed boutique. Shady loans. And now a loan shark named Marco who made even a retired cop like Tom nervous. I was in deeper than I'd ever meant to go. But there was no turning back. Not after Route 47. Not after Brandon's betrayal. I sipped cold coffee, the mug's weight grounding me. The past week had been a blur of digging, planning, and dodging the guilt that clawed at me. I was a mother, not a vigilante. Yet here I was, plotting to dismantle my son's life to save him. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent 32 years protecting Brandon, and now I was the threat. But Lauren had forced my hand, and he'd let her. That hurt worse than the cold of that highway. My plan had seemed simple. Expose Lauren's debts, reveal her ties to dangerous people, and force Brandon to see her for what she was. But the deeper I dug, the messier it got. Vanessa's slip about Lauren's panic over a Chicago caller. Mia's find about Vincent Russo. Tom's warning about Marco D'Angelo. Each clue was a step forward but also a trap. If Marco was as bad as Tom said, confronting him could end with more than just Lauren's ruin. And Brandon, God Brandon. Would he even listen? Or would he cling to her lies, leaving me alone in the wreckage? I pushed the thought away and focused on my next move. Vanessa had given me a lead, but she was unreliable. A gossip who'd turn on me if Lauren leaned on her. Mia was eager but young, and I couldn't drag a teenager into this. Tom was my best ally, but he'd already stuck his neck out. I needed more evidence, something undeniable to shove in Brandon's face. Something to break Lauren's spell. The phone rang, shattering the silence. I flinched, my heart racing. It was Tom, his voice low and urgent. "Kathy, I got something." "You alone?" "Yeah," I said, glancing at the dark windows. "What is it?" "Russo's been seen in Elmwood. Last night at that dive bar on Route 20. Bartender knows him. Says he was asking about a woman matching Lauren's description. Didn't use her name, but it's too close to be coincidence." My mouth went dry. Asking what? If she's still around, who she's with. Sounded like he was checking up. "Kathy, if she owes Marco money, they're not just calling anymore. They're here." I gripped the phone, my mind spinning. Vincent Russo in Elmwood. Lauren's past wasn't just catching up, it was knocking. Did the bartender say anything else? Only that Russo left after a call. Looked pissed. "You need to watch your back. If Lauren's in deep, she might drag you into this." "Thanks, Tom," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I hung up and stared at the notebook. Russo in Elmwood changed everything. Lauren wasn't just hiding from me. She was running from men who didn't play games. And if they were watching her, they might be watching Brandon. My son caught in her mess, oblivious to the danger. I needed to see Lauren to gauge her. If she was scared, she'd slip and I'd be there to catch it. But confronting her directly was risky. She'd lie or worse, turn Brandon against me even more. I decided to watch their house again to see if Russo or anyone else showed up. It wasn't a plan, it was desperation, but it was all I had. The next evening, I parked 2 blocks from Brandon's house, my old Corolla blending into the suburban dusk. The November air was bitter, the sky a bruised purple. Their split level glowed with warm light, a mockery of the home I'd raised him in. Lauren's SUV was in the driveway, but Brandon's truck was gone. Good. I didn't want to see his face, not yet. I waited, my breath fogging the windshield. At 7:15 p.m., a black sedan pulled up across the street. A man stepped out, tall, shaved head, a scar on his cheek. Vincent Russo. My heart pounded as he scanned the street, his movements deliberate, like a predator. He didn't approach the house, just stood by the car, lighting a cigarette. The glow illuminated his face, confirming the LinkedIn photo Mia had found. He was here and he wasn't hiding. Lauren's front door opened, and she stepped onto the porch, her phone pressed to her ear. She didn't see Russo, but her posture was tense, her free hand clutching her jacket. "I told you I need more time," she hissed into the phone. "I'm working on it." She paced, oblivious to the man watching her from the shadows. Russo flicked his cigarette away and got back in the sedan, driving off. Lauren hung up and went inside, slamming the door. I sat frozen, my hands trembling. She was scared and Russo was circling. But why hadn't he confronted her? Was he waiting for something, money orders? I drove home, my mind a tangle of fear and opportunity. Russo's presence was a complication, but it was also proof. Lauren was in trouble and I could use that. Back at the house, I called Mia. "I need another favor," I said, keeping my voice calm. "Can you check if Vincent Russo's name pops up with anyone named Marco D'Angelo? Social media, forums, anything."
Mia hesitated.
"Mrs. Wilson, this is getting intense. Are you okay?"
I'm fine, I lead.
"Just helping a friend. You're good at this, Mia. I trust you." She agreed and I hung up, guilt gnawing at me. Using a kid wasn't right, but I was running out of options. While I waited for her, I went through Lauren's old boutique reviews again, searching for anything I'd missed. One comment stuck out, buried in a 2-star rant. Owner was always on the phone with some guy named Marco. Sounded like he owned her.
Marco D'Angelo.
It had to be him. Mia texted an hour later. Found a photo on an old Instagram account. Russo and a guy tagged as MD at a Chicago club 2020. Caption says, "Business as usual." Count's private now, but I got a screenshot. Sending it. The image loaded on my phone. Russo smirking next to a man in a suit, his hair slicked back, a gold watch glinting.
Marco D'Angelo. I presumed.
They looked like they owned the world. I saved the photo, my resolve hardening. Lauren was tied to these men, and they were closing in. The next morning I went back to Vanessa. She was at Brood Awakening again, scrolling her phone. I didn't bother with pleasantries. "Vanessa, we need to talk. Now." She looked up, her eyes narrowing. "Kathy, what's with you? You're acting weird." "I know about Lauren's debts," I said, keeping my voice low. "And the people she owes."
Vincent Russo. Marco D'Angelo.
"They're in Elmwood, Vanessa. What's she into?" Her face went white. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie," I snapped. "You told me she was freaked out about a call from Chicago. Russo was at her house last night. What's going on?" Vanessa's hand shook as she grabbed her purse. "You're crazy. I didn't sign up for this." She stood to leave, but I grabbed her wrist. "Sit," I said, my voice ice. "If you don't talk, I'll tell Lauren you've been spilling her secrets. How long do you think she'll keep you around then?" She sat, her eyes darting around the coffee shop. "Fine," she whispered. "Lauren's in trouble. Big trouble. She borrowed money from Marco years ago before the boutique. When it failed, she couldn't pay. He's been after her ever since. She thought marrying Brandon would fix it, new life, new name. But Marco found her." My stomach twisted. "How much does she owe?" "I don't know. A lot. She's been paying bits, selling properties under the table. But it's not enough. Russo's here to collect, or worse." "Does Brandon know?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She shook her head.
No.
"She's terrified he'll find out. He thinks she's perfect. If he knew, he'd leave her." I let go of her wrist, my mind racing. Lauren was drowning, and she dragged Brandon into her mess. But Vanessa wasn't done. "There's more," she said, her voice trembling. "Lauren's been talking to a lawyer. She wants your house, Kathy. Says it's the only way to pay Marco off. She's trying to get Brandon to force you to sell." The world tilted. My house. My sanctuary. The one thing I'd held on to through every loss. Lauren wasn't just cutting me out. She was stealing my legacy to save herself. I stood, my chair scraping the floor. "Thanks, Vanessa," I said, my voice hollow. "You've been helpful." I walked out, the cold air hitting me like a slap. My plan was crumbling. I'd thought exposing Lauren would be enough, but she was fighting dirtier than I'd imagined. And Russo's presence meant time was running out. If she sold the house, I'd lose everything. If Marco got to her first, Brandon could get hurt. I was trapped and every move felt like a misstep. That night, I drove to Brandon's house again, my heart heavy. I needed to see him, to try one last time to break through. His truck was in the driveway and I parked, my hands trembling. I knocked and he opened the door, his face tired but guarded. "Mom," he said, glancing behind him. "What are you doing here?" "We need to talk," I said, stepping inside before he could stop me. Lauren was in the kitchen, her arms crossed, her eyes cold. "Brandon, get her out," she said, her voice sharp. "She's not welcome here." I ignored her, focusing on my son. "Brandon, she's lying to you. She's in debt, bad debt, to dangerous people. They're here in Elmwood. You're not safe." His face hardened. "Mom, stop. You're obsessed. Lauren told me you'd say this. You're just jealous." "Jealous?" I laughed, bitter. "She's using you to pay off her mistakes. Ask her about Marco D'Angelo. Ask her why Vincent Russo's watching your house." Lauren's face paled, but she recovered fast. "She's delusional, Brandon. She's trying to tear us apart." I pulled the letter from my pocket, the one I'd kept for 2 years. "This is from Pinnacle Financial. $47,000 in debts, Lauren. You never told him, did you?" Brandon took the letter, his eyes scanning it. For a moment I thought I'd won. But Lauren snatched it from him, tearing it in half. "It's fake," she said, her voice shaking. "She's forging things now. Brandon, she's lost it." He looked between us, his face a mask of confusion. "Mom, you need to go," he said finally, his voice low. "Don't come back." The door closed behind me, the sound final. I stood on the porch, the cold seeping into my bones. I'd played my card and it hadn't worked. Lauren was too good and Brandon was too blind. But as I drove home, a new thought hit me. The letter wasn't my only leverage. Vanessa had said Lauren was talking to a lawyer. If she was planning to force the sale of my house, there'd be a paper trail. And I knew someone who could help. The next day I called Ellen, a former colleague who'd married a real estate attorney. Over lunch at a diner outside Elmwood, I laid out the situation, leaving out the loan sharks. "I think my daughter-in-law's trying to pressure me into selling my house," I said. "Can your husband check for any filings or consultations?" Ellen frowned but nodded. "He's discreet. Give me her name and address. I'll see what he can find." 2 days later Ellen called. "Kathy, it's weird. There's no filing, but Lauren met with a lawyer named Greg Harper last month. My husband knows him, shady guy, does under-the-table deals. She inquired about forcing a sale through a power of attorney. Said her husband's mother was unstable." My blood ran cold. Power of attorney. Lauren wasn't just after the house. She was trying to declare me incompetent. It was a twist I hadn't seen coming. And it hit like a gut punch. If she succeeded, she'd control everything. My home, my savings, my life. And Brandon, my weak-willed son, might let her. I thanked Ellen and hung up, my hands shaking. The complications were piling up. Russo's threat, Lauren's legal maneuver, Brandon's refusal to listen. My plan to expose her was failing, she was always one step ahead. But the lawyer was a new lead. If Greg Harper was shady, he might be bought or at least intimidated. I needed to know more. I went back to Mia, pushing my guilt aside. "One last thing," I said, meeting her at the library after school. "Can you find anything on a lawyer named Greg Harper?" "Chicago, probably." Mia nodded, her fingers flying over her laptop. In 20 minutes she had a hit. A disciplinary notice from the Illinois Bar Association 2022. Harper had been reprimanded for unethical client dealings, including falsifying documents. Perfect. He was dirty, and dirty meant vulnerable. But before I could act, Tom called again. "Kathy, bad news. Russo's not alone. Another guy's been seen with him, probably Marco's muscle. They're staking out Lauren's office, not just her house. Whatever she owes, it's big. And they're done waiting." I thanked him, my heart sinking. The net was tightening and I was caught in it. Lauren's lies, Russo's threat, the lawyer's scheme, it was too much. I'd thought I could control this, but the truth was messier than I'd imagined. Lauren wasn't just a manipulator, she was desperate, and desperate people were dangerous. That night, I sat in my living room, the house dark except for a single lamp. I'd hit a wall. Every move led to a new obstacle and the stakes were climbing. If I went after Harper, Russo might strike. If I confronted Lauren again, she'd double down. And Brandon, my son, my heart was slipping further away. Then the doorbell rang. I froze, my pulse racing. It was 10 p.m., too late for visitors. I crept to the window, peering through the blinds. Vanessa stood on my porch, her face pale, her arms crossed tight. I opened the door, wary. "Kathy, I screwed up," she said, her voice shaking. "I told Lauren you were asking about her debts. She's furious. She's coming for you." I stared at her, the betrayal cutting deep. Vanessa, the weak link, had turned. "Why are you here?" I asked, my voice cold. "Because I'm scared," she admitted. "Lauren's not just mad, she's unhinged. She said she'd handle you, whatever that means. And those guys from Chicago. I saw one outside my house. I think they're watching me too." I let her in, my mind racing. Vanessa's betrayal was a blow. But her fear was an opportunity. She was a witness now, someone who could back me up. But Lauren's threat, "Handle me," changed everything. She wasn't just playing defense. She was coming for blood. "Tell me everything," I said, closing the door. "And don't leave anything out." Vanessa talked for an hour, spilling details she'd held back. Lauren's late-night calls with Marco. Her plan to use the house sale to pay him off. Her paranoia about Russo. And the lawyer, Harper, wasn't just advising her. He was forging documents to claim I was unfit, banking on Brandon's signature to seal it. As Vanessa left, promising to keep quiet, I sat alone, the house creaking around me. The truth was uglier than I'd thought. Lauren wasn't just a liar. She was a cornered animal, and I was in her sights. But so was she in mine. Harper was the key. If I could get to him, I could stop her plan. And Russo, maybe I could use him, turn her hunters against her. The game had changed and I was playing for keeps. The lamplight flickered in my living room, casting jagged shadows across the walls as I sat with Vanessa's words echoing in my head. Lauren was coming for me. Her plan to declare me unfit and seize my house, a blade aimed at my heart. The November chill seeped through the windows, but the cold inside me was sharper, fed by betrayal and a growing sense of dread. It was past 11 p.m., and Elmwood slept, oblivious to the war brewing in my home. My notebook lay open, its pages a map of Lauren's lies. Debts: Marco D'Angelo, Vincent Russo, Greg Harper. Each name was a landmine, and I was walking the field blind. Vanessa's confession had shaken me. She'd sold me out to Lauren, but her fear of Russo and her guilt had brought her crawling back. I didn't trust her. She was a snake, always slithering toward the winning side, but her information was gold. Lauren's desperation was my opening. If she was working with Harper to forge documents, there'd be evidence. If I could get to him, I could stop her cold. It felt like a solution, a way to end this without bloodshed. I was wrong, but I didn't know it yet. I leaned back in my chair, the creak of the wood grounding me. My plan was simple. Find Harper, expose his role, and use it to force Lauren to back off. If I could prove she was trying to steal my house through fraud, Brandon would have to see her for what she was. It was a clean strike, or so I thought. I'd spent years as a librarian, piecing together truths from fragments. This was just another puzzle. But puzzles don't fight back, and I was underestimating the players. The next morning, I woke with a fire in my chest. The house smelled of coffee and resolve as I pulled out my laptop and searched for Greg Harper. Mia's earlier find, the disciplinary notice from the Illinois Bar Association, gave me a start. Harper was a bottom feeder, reprimanded for falsifying documents. If he was forging papers for Lauren, he'd have a trail. I called Ellen again, my real estate attorney friend, and asked her to dig deeper into Harper's recent dealings. "No specifics," I said, keeping my voice casual. "Just curious if he's still active in Elmwood." Ellen promised to check, but I couldn't wait. I drove to Chicago, Harper's last known office address from an outdated website. The city was a gray sprawl under a low sky, its streets alive with honking cabs and hurried pedestrians. His office was in a rundown strip mall, sandwiched between a nail salon and a vape shop. The sign read Harper Legal Services. But the window was dark, the door locked. A handwritten note taped to the glass said, "Out of office. Call for appointments." I dialed the number, my heart pounding. It went to voicemail, his voice slick and practiced. "Leave a message and I'll get back to you." "Mr. Harper, this is Catherine Wilson," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "I have questions about a client of yours. Call me." I left my number and hung up, frustration gnawing at me. He was a ghost and I was running out of time. Back in Elmwood, I stopped at Brood Awakening, hoping to catch Vanessa for more details. She wasn't there, but Mia was, hunched over her laptop in a corner. She waved me over, her eyes bright with excitement. "Mrs. Wilson, I found something on Harper," she whispered, glancing around. "He's got a private X account, but I got into a thread where he was tagged. Someone posted about him doing creative paperwork for a real estate deal in Elmwood. Sounded sketchy." My pulse quickened. "Can you get the post?" "Already did," she said, turning her screen. The post was vague but damning. "Harper's at it again, cooking books for some Elmwood deal. Watch your back." The user was anonymous, but the timestamp was last week. It was enough to confirm Harper was active and dirty. "Thanks, Mia," I said, slipping her a 20 for her trouble. "You're a lifesaver." She grinned, but her voice dropped. "Be careful, okay? This guy sounds bad." I nodded, but careful was a luxury I couldn't afford. Back home, I called Tom, my cop friend, and gave him Harper's name. "Can you see if he's got a record? Or if he's tied to Marco D'Angelo?" Tom sighed. "Kathy, you're playing with fire. But I'll look." "Stay put, all right." I didn't stay put. That evening, I drove to Lauren's real estate office, a sleek glass building on Elmwood's main drag. It was past closing, but her SUV was in the lot, the office lights on. I parked across the street, my hands tight on the wheel. If Harper was working with her, she might have files, emails, something I could use. I wasn't a thief, but desperation makes you bold. I waited until the lights went out and Lauren left, her heels clicking as she locked the door. I slipped out of my car, a flashlight in my pocket and a crowbar from my garage tucked under my jacket. The lot was empty, the street quiet. My heart pounded as I approached the back door, the crowbar heavy in my hand. I'd never broken into anything, but the thought of Lauren's smug face drove me forward. The lock was flimsy, and after a few shaky tries, it gave. I stepped inside, the office dark except for the glow of a computer screen left on. The air smelled of perfume and printer ink. I moved to Lauren's desk, its surface cluttered with files and a coffee mug that read "Boss Babe." I rifled through the drawers, my flashlight beam dancing. Most were junk. Pens, receipts, a half-eaten granola bar. But in the bottom drawer, locked but easily pried open, I found a folder labeled Wilson Property. My breath caught. Inside were drafts of a power of attorney form, my name listed as incapacitated. Lauren's signature was scrawled at the bottom, alongside Harper's. I stuffed the folder in my jacket, my hands shaking with triumph. This was it, proof she was trying to rob me. I was about to leave when the computer screen flickered, a new email popping up. The sender was G. Harper. I clicked, my curiosity overriding caution. The message was short. "Doc's ready. Meet me tomorrow 8 p.m. Rusty Nail. Bring the cash." The Rusty Nail was the dive bar on Route 20 where Russo had been spotted. My stomach twisted. Harper was meeting Lauren, and it was tied to the documents. I closed the email and slipped out, the folder burning a hole in my jacket. I'd done it. I had evidence. I thought I'd won. I was wrong. The next day I called Brandon, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "Meet me at the house," I said. "I have something you need to see."
No, Lauren.
"Just you." He hesitated, his voice weary. "Mom, I don't know." "Please," I cut in. "For me." He agreed, and by 6 p.m., he was at my door, his face drawn. The house smelled of the lasagna I'd made, a weak attempt to soften the blow. We sat at the kitchen table, the folder between us. "What's this?" he asked, his eyes wary. "Proof," I said, sliding it to him. "Lauren's trying to take the house. She's working with a lawyer to declare me unfit. These are the papers." He opened the folder, his brow furrowing as he read. I watched his face, searching for the boy I'd raised, the one who'd trusted me. "This can't be right," he muttered. "She wouldn't." "She did," I said, my voice firm. "And she's hiding more. Debts, Brandon. Tens of thousands. She owes dangerous people, and she's using you to clean it up." His hand shook as he closed the folder. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I tried," I said, my voice breaking. "On Route 47 I tried. You didn't listen." He looked away, guilt flickering in his eyes. For a moment I thought I had him. I thought he'd see the truth, that we could fix this together. "I'll talk to her," he said finally. "I'll get answers." "No," I said, grabbing his arm. "Don't. She'll lie. Come with me tonight. She's meeting the lawyer at the Rusty Nail. We can catch her." He pulled away, his face hardening. "I need to hear it from her, Mom. I'm not spying on my wife." He left, the door slamming behind him. I sat alone, the lasagna cold, my victory slipping through my fingers. I'd thought the folder would be enough, that Brandon would choose me. But he was still hers, and I'd pushed too hard. At 7:30 p.m., I drove to the Rusty Nail, unable to stay away. The bar was a squat brick building, its neon sign flickering. The lot was packed with trucks and motorcycles, the air thick with cigarette smoke. I parked at the edge, my eyes scanning for Lauren's SUV. It wasn't there, but a black sedan caught my eye, the same one Russo had driven. My heart sank. This was a mistake, but I was too far in. Inside, the bar was dim, the jukebox blaring some 80s rock song. I spotted Harper at a corner booth, his cheap suit wrinkled, a beer in his hand. He was alone, checking his watch. I slid into a stool at the bar, keeping my head down. The bartender, a grizzled man with a beard, barely glanced at me. I ordered a soda, my eyes on Harper. At 8:05, Lauren walked in, her face tight with nerves. She sat across from Harper, her voice low but audible over the music. "You said it was done," she snapped. "Why is it taking so long?" Harper shrugged. "Your mother-in-law's a problem. She's been sniffing around. We need to move fast." My blood ran cold. They were talking about me. I leaned closer, straining to hear. "She's nothing," Lauren said, her voice venomous. "Just an old woman with no one." Brandon's on my side. Harper smirked. Good. Sign the papers tonight and we'll file tomorrow. Once she's out, the house is yours. I gripped my glass, rage and fear colliding. I'd been right, but it didn't feel like victory. Felt like a trap. I was about to leave when the door swung open and Brandon walked in. My heart stopped. He wasn't supposed to be here. His eyes found Lauren and he froze, the folder in his hand. Lauren, he said, his voice cutting through the noise. What the hell is this? She spun, her face paling. Brandon, what are you? He threw the folder on the table. You're trying to screw over my mom? For what? Money. Harper stood, his eyes darting to the door. I'm out, he muttered, but Brandon grabbed his arm. Sit, he said, his voice low and dangerous. I'd never seen him like this. My soft boy turned hard. I wanted to cheer, but fear held me back. This was spiraling. Lauren stood, her hands raised. Baby, it's not what you think. I'm protecting us. Your mom's unstable. Stop lying, he snapped. I read the papers. I heard you. The bar went quiet, eyes turning to the scene. I slid off my stool, ready to step in when the door opened again. Vincent Russo walked in, his scar glinting under the lights. He scanned the room, his gaze landing on Lauren. She froze, her eyes wide with terror. Lauren, Russo said, his voice smooth but deadly. Time's up. Brandon turned, confusion on his face. Who's this? Russo ignored him, stepping closer. Marco's done waiting. You got the money or we got a problem. Harper bolted, shoving past Russo and out the door. Brandon grabbed Lauren's arm. What's he talking about? What money? She yanked free, her voice shrill. It's nothing, Brandon. He's nobody. But Russo laughed, a cold sound that chilled me. Nobody? Tell him, sweetheart. Tell him about the $100,000 you owe Marco. Tell him how you plan to sell his mom's house to pay it. The truth hit like a sledgehammer. $100,000. Not $47,000. The letter I'd found was outdated, a fraction of her debt. I thought I knew her secrets, but I'd only scratched the surface. Brandon's face crumpled, betrayal written in every line. Is this true? He whispered. Lauren's mask cracked, tears streaming down her face. I had no choice, she sobbed. They'll kill me, Brandon. I was going to fix it. I stepped forward, unable to stay hidden. You were going to fix it by stealing my home, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos. By betraying your family. Russo's eyes flicked to me, a predator sizing up prey. You must be the mom, he said. Heard you've been poking around. Bad move. Brandon stepped between us, his fists clenched. Leave her alone. Russo smirked but backed off, his hands raised. Relax, kid. I'm here for her, not you. He nodded at Lauren. You got 1 week. Marco wants his money or you're done. He left, the door slamming behind him. The bar erupted in murmurs, but I barely heard them. Brandon turned to Lauren, his voice broken. Get out. We're done. She begged, her words a blur of excuses, but he walked away, leaving her sobbing in the booth. I followed him outside, the cold air a shock after the bar's heat. Brandon, I called, my voice soft. He stopped, his shoulders slumped. You were right, he said, not looking at me. I'm sorry. I wanted to hug him, to pull him close like when he was small. But the rift between us was still there, raw and wide. Come home, I said. We'll figure this out. He nodded, and we drove to my house in silence. I thought it was over. I thought I'd won. Lauren exposed, Brandon back, the house safe. But as we pulled into my driveway, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You think you're smart, old lady? Keep digging, and you'll dig your grave. My blood ran cold. Husu. Or Marco. I'd exposed Lauren, but I'd also drawn their attention. The victory I'd tasted was a lie. A false resolution that had only deepened the danger. Lauren was down, but the real threat was just beginning. The text from the unknown number burned in my mind as I sat in my kitchen, the house cloaked in the pre-dawn silence of Elmwood. It was 4 a.m., and sleep was a distant memory. Brandon slept upstairs in his old room. His presence both a comfort and a weight. The events at the Rusty Nail had shattered Lauren's facade, but the victory felt hollow. Russo's threat. Keep digging and you'll dig your grave. Hung over me like a storm cloud. I'd exposed Lauren's lies, but in doing so, I'd kicked a hornet's nest. Marco D'Angelo and his enforcer weren't just after her now. They were watching me. The kitchen smelled of stale coffee and the faint lavender from a candle I'd lit to steady my nerves. My notebook lay open, its pages a chronicle of my war. Lauren's $100,000 debt. Her scheme with Greg Harper, Vincent Russo's looming presence, and Marco D'Angelo, the shadow behind it all. I thought the folder of forged documents would be my trump card, that showing Brandon the truth would end this. But the truth was a beast with sharper teeth than I'd imagined. Lauren was cornered, Brandon was broken, and I was in the crosshairs of men who didn't bluff. I sipped my coffee, the mug cold in my hands. The house creaked, its familiar sounds anchoring me. This was my home, my legacy, the one thing Lauren couldn't take. But the threat of Marco's men made it feel like a target. I couldn't run. Elmwood was my life and Brandon needed me, even if he didn't say it. I had to finish this to protect us both. That meant facing the truth, all of it, and using it to dismantle the danger once and for all. My first move was to secure the house. I called Tom at 6 a.m., my voice low to avoid waking Brandon. I need help, I said, skipping pleasantries. Russo's threatening me. I've got evidence on Lauren, documents, her debts, her ties to Marco D'Angelo. But I'm in over my head. Tom's voice was grim. Kathy, I told you this was bad. Marco's not some street thug. He's connected, Chicago mob, old school. If Russo's on you, you need to go to the cops. No, I said, my tone final. They'll drag Brandon into this. I need to end it quietly. Can you get me a contact? Someone who can take evidence and make it stick without a circus. He sighed but relented. I know a guy, ex-FBI. Runs a private security firm now. Name's Paul Grayson. He's discreet but he's not cheap. You got something solid for him? I do, I said, glancing at the folder on the table. And I'll get more. Tom gave me Grayson's number and a warning. Don't play hero, Kathy. These guys don't miss. I hung up and stared at the folder. The power of attorney forms, Lauren's signature, Harper's involvement. It was enough to ruin her, but not to stop Marco. I needed something bigger, something that would make him back off. That meant going after Lauren one last time. Squeezing her for the truth about her deal with him. She was scared, broken. If I pushed hard enough, she'd crack. Brandon came downstairs at 7, his face haggard, his eyes red. He looked like the boy I'd raised, but older, weighed down by betrayal. Mom, he said, sitting across from me. I messed up. I should have listened. I reached for his hand, my heart aching. You're here now. That's what matters. He shook his head. Lauren, I thought she loved me. But it was all a lie. The house, the debts, she used me. She used us both, I said, my voice soft but firm. But we're not done. She's still out there and she's tied to people who could hurt us. I need your help, Brandon. We need to finish this. His jaw tightened. A spark of the man I'd hoped he'd become. What do I do? Find her, I said. She's not at your house, I checked. She's probably hiding, but she won't leave Elmwood. Not with Marco's men here. Call her, text her, whatever it takes. Get her to meet you. I'll handle the rest. He nodded, pulling out his phone. I left him to it and called Paul Grayson. His voice was clipped, professional, like he'd seen every kind of mess. Tom says you've got a problem, he said. What's the job? I've got evidence of fraud and ties to a loan shark named Marco D'Angelo, I said. I need you to take it to the right people, FBI, whoever, and make sure it sticks. But I need protection too. His enforcer's threatening me. Grayson paused. D'Angelo's a name I know. Send me what you have, and I'll start a file. Protection's trickier. You got a safe place to stay. My house, I said. I'm not leaving. He grunted. I'll send a guy to watch your place tonight. Name's Derek. Don't do anything stupid until we meet. Tomorrow noon, my office in Chicago. I agreed and emailed him scans of the folder, along with Mia's screenshot of Russo and Marco. It felt like progress, but the waiting was torture. Brandon texted Lauren, his messages a mix of anger and desperation. We need to talk. I deserve answers. She didn't reply, but I knew she'd bite eventually. She was too vain to let him go without a fight. By noon, I was restless, pacing the house. The memories it held, Brandon's laughter, our late-night talks, kept me grounded, but they also reminded me what I was fighting for. I thought of Route 47, the moment my son drove away. That pain had fueled me, but now it was clarity. Lauren had betrayed us, but Marco was the real threat. If I could turn her against him, use her fear to get evidence, I could end this. Brandon's phone pinged at 2 p.m. Lauren had texted back. Meet me at the park for p.m. alone. I read it over his shoulder, my gut twisting. The park was public, but secluded enough for trouble. I didn't trust her, but it was my chance. I'm coming, I said, cutting off Brandon's protest. She won't talk to you alone. She'll lie. I know how to push her. He relented, and we drove to the park, a small patch of grass and trees on Elmwood's edge. The November air was sharp, the sky gray with the promise of snow. Lauren was already there, sitting on a bench, her coat pulled tight. She looked smaller, her confidence gone, but her eyes were hard when she saw me. "You weren't supposed to come," she snapped, standing. "This is between me and Brandon." "No," I said, stepping closer. "You made it about me when you left me on that highway. When you tried to steal my house. Now talk. What's your deal with Marco D'Angelo?" Her face paled, but she held her ground. "You don't know what you're talking about. I know you owe him $100,000, I said, my voice low. "I know Russo's here to collect. I know you're scared. Tell me the truth, Lauren, or I'll take everything I have to the FBI." Brandon stared at her, his voice raw. "Is it true? All of it?" She looked at him, tears welling, but her voice was steady. "Yes. I borrowed from Marco years ago. The boutique was failing, and I was desperate. He gave me the money, but it came with strings. When I couldn't pay, he didn't let go. I thought marrying you would give me a way out, but he found me." "Why didn't you tell me?" Brandon asked, his voice breaking. "Because you'd leave," she said, her voice small. "I love you, Brandon. I didn't want to lose you." I laughed, bitter. "You love him so much you plan to sell my house? To declare me crazy?" She flinched but didn't deny it. "I had no choice. Marco's not like normal creditors. He doesn't sue. He hurts people. I thought if I could pay him, he'd leave us alone." "What does he have on you?" I pressed, sensing weakness. "There's more, isn't there?" She hesitated, then nodded. "He's got records. Payments I made, deals I brokered to keep him off my back. Some of it. It's not legal. If it gets out, I'm done. Prison maybe." "Give me the records," I said. "I can use them to stop him." She shook her head, panic in her eyes. "You don't get it. If I betray Marco, he'll kill me. And you. And Brandon." "Then why meet us?" I asked, stepping closer. "Why risk it?" She looked at Brandon, her voice trembling. "Because I want out. I want to fix this. But I need help." I didn't believe her, not fully, but her fear was real. "Give me something," I said. "A name, a place, anything I can use." She swallowed, then spoke. "Marco keeps his books at a warehouse in Chicago near the docks. I don't know the address, but it's got a red sign, says D'Angelo Imports. If you get those, you'll have everything, his clients, his deals, me included." It was a lifeline, but a dangerous one. I nodded, my mind racing. "Stay away from Brandon," I said. "And don't run." "Oh no." We left her there, Brandon silent as we drove home. I called Grayson and told him about the warehouse. "Can you get someone to check it?" I asked. "Already on it," he said. "My guy's in Chicago. If it's there, we'll find it. Meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m. Bring your son." That night, Derek, Grayson's man, parked outside my house, a hulking figure in a black SUV. I felt safer, but not safe. Brandon and I talked, really talked, for the first time in years. He apologized for Route 47, for choosing Lauren, for everything. I held him, my boy, and promised we'd get through this. But the threat still loomed. The next morning, we met Grayson at his office, a sleek space in downtown Chicago. He was in his 50s, gray hair, sharp eyes. He slid a USB drive across his desk. My guy got into the warehouse. Lauren wasn't lying. Marco's books are digital, stored on a server. This has everything. His loans, his enforcers, his payoffs. Lauren's in there, along with a dozen other names. It's enough to bury him. I took the drive, my hand steady. "What now?" "I've got contacts at the FBI," Grayson said. "They'll take it from here. Marco's done and Russo with him. But Lauren's a problem. She's named in the files. She'll go down too." Brandon tensed beside me. "She's still my wife," he said, his voice low. "Can't we protect her?" Grayson shook his head. "She's complicit. Fraud, money laundering, maybe more. Best case, she cooperates and gets a deal. But she's not walking." I looked at Brandon, his face torn. "I hated Lauren, but I loved him. She made her choices," I said gently. "You don't have to go down with her." He nodded, but the pain in his eyes cut me. Grayson promised to handle the FBI handover and keep us updated. We drove back to Elmwood, the USB drive in my pocket like a ticking bomb. The truth was out, and justice was coming, but it wasn't clean. Lauren would face consequences, prison, maybe worse. Marco and Russo would fall, their empire crumbling under the weight of their own records. But Brandon would lose his marriage, his trust, maybe part of himself. That evening, I sat in my living room, the house quiet except for the crackle of the fireplace. Brandon was upstairs, packing to stay with a friend while the dust settled. I thought back to Route 47, to the moment I'd stood alone on that highway. I'd been broken then, but I'd fought back. I'd uncovered Lauren's lies, Marco's crimes, and saved my home. But the cost was heavy. My son was hurting, and I'd danced too close to danger. I opened my notebook, flipping through the pages. Each note was a step in my journey, from betrayal to justice. I'd been a librarian, a mother, a detective. Now, I was something else. A woman who'd faced the dark and come out standing. Lauren's downfall was her own making, but I'd lit the fuse. Marco's end was his greed, but I'd handed over the match. The phone rang, Grayson's name on the screen. "It's done," he said. "FBI's moving on Marco. Raided the warehouse an hour ago. Russo's in custody, and they're picking up Lauren tonight. You're clear." I thanked him, my voice steady. As I hung up, Brandon came downstairs, his bag slung over his shoulder. "I'm heading out," he said. "I need time." "I know," I said, standing to hug him. "I'm here always." He held me tight, then left, the door closing softly. I sat by the fire, the USB drive on the table. The truth had set us free, but it had also burned us. Lauren's lies, Marco's threats, my own rage, they'd all led to this. Justice, but not peace. I closed my notebook, the story written. The house was mine, my son was safe, and the monsters were caged. But as the flames danced, I knew the scars would stay. A reminder of what I'd done to protect what was mine. The first snow of December dusted Elmwood, blanketing Maple Street in a quiet that felt like forgiveness. I sat on my porch, a quilt draped over my shoulders, watching the flakes settle on the sagging railing of my house. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and wood smoke, and the neighborhood glowed with the soft warmth of Christmas lights. It was 2 weeks since the FBI raided Marco D'Angelo's warehouse, since Vincent Russo was cuffed, since Lauren was taken away. The storm had passed, but its echoes lingered in the stillness of my home. Inside, the house was as it always had been, creaky floors, faded wallpaper, the smell of lavender and memory. But it felt different now, heavier, as if the walls had absorbed the weight of what I'd done. I'd saved it, this sanctuary of mine, from Lauren's greed and Marco's shadow. I'd saved Brandon too, though the cost was a fracture in his heart I couldn't mend. The victory was mine, but it wasn't sweet. It was bitter like the coffee I clutched, its steam curling into the cold. I thought of Route 47, that desolate stretch where this all began. The moment Brandon drove away, leaving me stranded, had been a knife to my soul. I'd been Catherine Wilson, retired librarian, devoted mother. A woman who believed love could conquer anything. That night I learned it couldn't. Love had blinded me to his weakness, to Lauren's venom. But it had also forged me into something new. A fighter, a detective, a mother who'd burn the world to protect her own. The porch creaked as I shifted, my eyes on the street where Brandon used to ride his bike, his laughter echoing through summers long gone. He was staying with a friend now, piecing himself together after Lauren's arrest. She'd been charged with fraud and money laundering, her name tangled in Marco's books. Grayson said she'd likely take a plea, trading information for a lighter sentence. 5 years, maybe 7. Brandon hadn't visited her, and I didn't push. He needed time, and I needed to let him go just a little. I sipped my coffee, the warmth grounding me. The moral weight of my choices pressed against me. Had I been right to dig, to expose, to destroy? I told myself it was justice, that Lauren's betrayal and Marco's threats left me no choice. But in the quiet, I wondered if I'd gone too far. I'd used Vanessa's gossip, Mia's skills, Tom's connections, even Brandon's pain to build my case. I'd broken into Lauren's office, risked my life, and danced with danger I barely understood. I'd won, but at what cost? My son's trust was frayed, my peace was scarred, and the woman I'd been, a soft, forgiving mother, was gone. Yet as the snow fell, I felt a strange peace. I'd faced the dark and come out standing. The house was mine, its deed untouched, its memories intact. I thought of the nights I'd read to Brandon here, the mornings we'd baked cookies, the fights and reconciliations that made us a family. Lauren had tried to steal that, to erase me. She'd failed. Marco had loomed, a specter of violence, but he was caged now, his empire dust. I'd done what I had to, and I'd do it again. A car pulled up, its headlights cutting through the dusk. Brandon stepped out, his coat dusted with snow. My heart lifted, though I kept my face calm. He climbed the porch steps, his eyes tired but clearer than they'd been in weeks. "Hey Mom," he said, sitting beside me. "Cold out here." "Warm enough with this," I said, lifting my mug. "You okay?" He nodded, staring at the street. "Getting there. Talked to a lawyer today. Divorce papers are ready. I need to move on." I reached for his hand, his fingers cold but strong. "You will. You're tougher than you think." He laughed, a small broken sound. "I got that from you. We sat in silence, the snow falling like a curtain between us and the world. I thought of the lessons this had taught me. Trust was fragile, but so was betrayal. Lauren's lies had crumbled under scrutiny, her power an illusion. Love was a strength, but it needed boundaries. I'd given Brandon too much, shielded him too long, and he'd stumbled. But he was standing now, and so was I. The future stretched ahead. Uncertain but not empty. I'd go back to tutoring, to helping kids like Mia find their voices. I'd fix the porch, maybe paint the house, make it new again. Brandon would heal, find his way, maybe love again. And I'd be here in this house, ready for whatever came next. I stood, brushing snow from my quilt. Come inside, I said. I'll make cocoa. He followed, the door creaking shut behind us. The kitchen was warm, the light soft, and as I heated milk on the stove, I felt the weight lift just a fraction. The fight was over, the truth laid bare. I'd lost pieces of myself, but I'd gained others, strength, clarity, a fire that wouldn't fade. I handed Brandon a mug, its steam rising like a promise. To new beginnings, I said, raising mine. He clinked his against it, a faint smile breaking through. To family. The snow fell outside, covering the scars of the past. My house stood firm, my son beside me, and in that moment I knew I'd done enough. The road had been brutal, but I'd walked it. And I'd walk it again, for him, for me, for the home we'd never lose. If you like this story, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and write in the comments what impressed you the most about this story. Also, we recommend you to listen to our previous story. It is even more shocking. Just click on the box on the left to play it. Thank you for watching.